of money. That's just your counting thing. And even if you make profit, that's another decision you've got to make. Do you go off skiing or do you refit the shop out again? It's a constant struggle being in business. And
well, it depends on what part of the business you're in, though. If you're in the business of owning the property, there's no real struggle. You just, got to re-up your contract every couple of years, do a little bit of maintenance on the building, and you're in business. And especially if you're in a circumstance where the business is actually successful and doesn't want to move, then you're in the catchbird seat, and you can exploit the circumstance. And that's what we're talking about here. We're just talking about exploitation, and you're calling that some sort of functional mechanism. Exploitation will set us free. I mean, what a pile of crap. That we can engineer better systems than this. This is a moron's approach to a problem. This isn't us thinking human beings' approach to a problem. Isn't to reach for the simple answer. Isn't to pick up. You're not going to fix a pocket watch with a fucking sledgehammer.
Money is the essential unit of scorekeeping. And if, when all this goes completely fucked, whenever it does, don't think that we're going to go to some la-la land of some other method of doing things.
Oh, that's just so fair for this guy who complains about straw men and all this crap, and he'll sit there and say something like la-la land. Oh yeah, it's real la-la to analyze the structure and dynamics of our economy and to say, okay, look, let's engineer. Let's take the best of capitalism. Let's take the best of incentive economics. Let's try to engineer ourselves a system. And so we'll say, yes, competition is good, but only if it plays in this rule. Okay, as long as there's no steroids, as long as there's no assassination attempts, as long as you have rules that say you can't cut corners here, and you can't cut corners there, you can't break the pitcher's arm to win the baseball game. So yeah, you make some rules for the competition that contain it, that don't let it get out of control and create waste and stupid nonsense. And it's so easily done. I mean, it isn't brain surgery. You say you have say it's making electronic products. All right, so you create two companies. You staff them with two different management teams, and you say to them, two different CEOs even. You just pick two guys, you elect them or whatever, and you say your job is to make yourself this many units, and you can't go beyond a certain quota, so you don't drive the other company out of business. All right, but you can steal up to 30% of their percentage. So you can take 70% of the market, let's say, and the other business could have 30%. That's the worst you can get. So you can't create more units. You can't completely annihilate them out of the business. But you can certainly, now you can be in competition, and the two businesses can be rated, and the CEOs can be and the employees can be rewarded for their performance, and you simply tax the two businesses to create a fund that'll go to the winner. So whoever wins the competition gets the tax money, bonus money. So those employees get compensated and they get rewarded for their better performance, and the other business who loses the competition has the incentive to win it next time. But you have to have rules. You have to play the game in some sort of structure, because if you don't, there'll be lots of game playing. There'll be lots of manipulations of the system, breaking of the rules to win the game, not playing the game, stealing signals and such.
People go rattling straight back to capitalism, like the bakers are doing it in my village, because it's the efficient way of doing it.
No, it's the dumb, moron, stupid way of doing it. It's the highly inefficient way of doing it. It's paying people not to necessarily do productive work. It's paying people to engineer schemes and loopholes and gimmicks to come up with ideas like hers, like, oh yeah, I can lose $1 million a year for 100 years. Nobody will be able to compete with me. I can just take over. Yeah, it's so obvious. I win, they lose automatically. No problem.
How many bread to produce? And if you produce too much bread, you're going to be punished. If you produce too little bread, you're going to be punished. That's the hand that slaps the businessman and tells them indirectly what to produce, at what price, what.
Right, and if somebody comes into the market with a big pile of money, Mrs. Mystic, because Mr. Mystic has a pile of gold in the yard, and so she decides she wants to get into the bread-making business, and Mr. Mystic calculates that, well, hell, I could finance that for 5 years. I mean, we don't have to make any money for a few years, and so, yeah, I can generate us a lot of business. I can destroy the other businesses, because now they're going to be in a panic, okay? When their business starts to go bad, they're not going to, I can see they really don't have a safety net set up. I mean, they're sort of living hand-to-mouth. Even though they're making a lot of money, it's sort of hand-to-mouth, because I can see they got a summer home, they're mortgaged, and this and that, so they're going to really need the money, the income from their shop, and once that income stops, they're going to start taking it out of the shop. They're going to start mortgaging the shop, maybe. And then I'll really have an advantage, because not only will I be mortgage-free in business, I'll have them behind an 8-ball. Okay? Why? Oh, that's right, because I can afford to lose money for a couple of years.
Price the village will buy at, what price the village will not buy at. And it's essential that is left to be as free as possible. Free.
I mean, it's just so silly. Free from what, Nick? Again, itemize this oppression that these businesses are in. So you're just arguing nonsense. You're just saying, well, people should be free to open a coal mine in their backyard and put some 13-year-old kids in it to dig out the coal. Or they should be free to, I want to have an oil derrick, okay, right next to the 5,000 acre wildlife refuge that's 5 miles away. So yeah, I want to put up an oil derrick in my backyard, and I certainly don't want no government telling me how to drill oil. Gee, that would be silly, wouldn't it? Because I'm a responsible businessman. Why would I jeopardize the value of the public's property? I mean, I would certainly have more respect than that. I wouldn't be soiling, entire goddamn millions of acres or something with my putrid, cost effectiveness, would I?
From interference from the outside world, and that way it balances itself up. But it's murder on the business.
Oh yeah, it's murder on the businessman. It ain't too good for the like I said, the desperate little starving people. Because they'll just basically, okay, yeah, you can employ my kid for 10 cents an hour because we gotta buy medicine for the other sickly kid. Yeah, right.
Business people, because they have to stay completely on their toes. Because when it comes down to it, the most is you've got the bottom line.
Yeah, again, who's on their toes is usually the guy. There's usually some guy who's going to be held responsible, the manager or whatever, somebody else. But yeah, the rich people are just sitting there. Yeah, they're going to count their money, and they're not going to care how the money's made. They're just going to make sure they get their cut.
Which is your profit or your loss. And the bottom line of that is success or failure. And that is what we don't have now.
Yeah, and we really don't have failure, do we, Nick? I mean, you pass on your profit. So any profit you make in your life, you get to pass that on to your kids. But if you create a bankruptcy and there's a huge debt not paid, that doesn't get passed on to anybody but the consumer. So somehow these winners get to pass on this legacy of winning, but there's no legacy of losing that's ever passed on. Something obviously doesn't seem equitable there. The scale seems somehow tilted and imbalanced, and somehow we end up bailing out the little poor sucker who fails.
Turn the page over on what do we have now, 2010. We've got interference all over the place.
Yeah, I wish you, like I said, I wish you would detail, itemize pieces of it. Let's, not just one. Let's have your short list, your top 10 list of the crap that you say is driving these businesses out of business. Because as I understand how it works, is most of these regulations apply to all the businesses. So anybody competing on your level is going to be competing with the same regulation. And for every regulation that is disadvantageous to the small businessman, there's also a regulation that's probably going to be a little disadvantageous to the big giant corporation in terms of what its liabilities are and its expenses are in competing in some smaller market.
Businessmen and women don't know where they are. They don't know which way's up. They don't know what's going to happen next, normally coming from government.
Yeah, and where's your evidence of this? Where? You just spouted that crap like it's supposed to mean something to somebody. I know lots of people who are run independent businesses, LLCs, and they can make a okay income, survivable, and all that kind of crud. And yeah, it's a pain in the ass, but yeah, they file their own taxes, they pay their own Social Security, or they choose not to, one way or the other. They get their health insurance, and they have to, to maintain, if they're licensed, they have to do something to maintain their license, this, and this, and it's not that big a fucking deal, Nick.
Huge, unforeseen things that they don't know how to account for. It might be the government interfering in anything that's going to upset what's going on. But even that, it can be totally put aside because that's the small people trying to do business. Most business, as I said yesterday in this unsavory world, is these huge, big corporations doing huge things with huge amounts of money.
Yeah, but they're also in competition with each other, so it's not like they don't have any kind of limitations on how out of control they get. But yeah, there's a huge amount of unproductivity in just looking at how stores compete with each other. Again, all these rebates, all these gimmicks, all these ways to market selling, not to sell in some honest way, not to open a door and allow people to purchase something, but to create a deceptions and fakeries. Yeah, I'll sign up for our car leasing program, and then there's 14 pages of fine print, and they don't outright tell the customer, no, you'll be paying 3 times the value of the car. No, they don't tell them that little simple honest truth.
And bookkeeping there is just a much sloppier affair, and you can really live or die. Your success and failure isn't so much your bottom line now. You don't know really whether you're doing well or not. Your business can live or die on a visit to a meeting of your banks, your creditors. And
yeah, well, theoretically, if you're a small business and you're in debt, you're starting off from a position that's just not going to make you, unless you're going into a market that you can control, that's not very clever. Realistically, how are you going to do competitive business against a company that's not in debt if you're in debt? That puts you in an obvious disadvantage.
Just getting more money put in is success or failure. Or a meeting with your local government representative could be success or failure. The whole thing is just a mess nowadays of...
Yeah, well, if there's some corruption going on, that can always be exposed by your competitors also. I mean, that sort of has happened in the local politics here. You know, when there's some game being played, it gets in the newspaper now and then, so it's doable. But it usually works the other way around. It's not so much doing favors that governments get pissed off at somebody. You know, somebody doesn't kiss their ass the right way, and then they can destroy them. And that's a problem, and government officials should be held accountable for those games being played.
Too bigness, and they're almost too big for Adam Smith's hand to knock them around. And obviously they're too...
And again, Adam Smith's hand, the scenarios are endless scenarios where this invisible hand will not do anything constructive. It will create incentives for, well, let's say, 3 doctors. Okay, they get together and decide to open a clinic. So now they've just forced every other doctor to go into that pattern in that region, because now they're going to have an obvious advantage. And that advantage doesn't necessarily do the consumer any good. I mean, it saves the doctor some money because